Hello, very good morning. Welcome to Breakfast with Dan Walker and Louise Minchin.
The headlines for you at 6 o'clock this morning. A country in crisis. India's death toll passes 200,000 with growing evidence many more deaths are not being counted.
We've spent the day with staff at one of Delhi's main hospitals struggling to cope as the pandemic spreads and supplies run low.
They call us God. That makes us so emotional because we can only do so much.
Gearing up for the big event. Good morning. The first in-person business conference since the pandemic began gets underway in Liverpool. You'll need to prove you're COVID-free, but then there's no masks or enforced social distancing. Will it provide the boost the industry desperately needs?
UK cruising is making a comeback this summer. I'm in Rosyth finding out the challenges facing operators.
Good morning. An away goal for Chelsea in the Champions League, but will Pulisic's strike in Madrid be enough to get them to the final?
Good morning. It's a cold and a frosty start for some parts of Scotland this morning, but here it's a bright start with some scattered showers, as there will be across northern England and also Northern Ireland. For the rest of England and Wales, fairly cloudy with some rain. I'll have all the details coming up.
Good morning, it's Wednesday, it's the 28th of April. The top story for you this morning is that India has now seen more COVID cases in the last 7 days than any other country.
The recent surge of infections has taken the official death toll past 200,000, but frontline workers say the real number is much higher.
Medical staff are battling a shortage of beds, oxygen and medicines. Our India correspondent Yogita Limai has spent the day with one nurse who works at a Holy Family Hospital in Delhi.
Years of training, but nothing could have prepared them for this. Manjusha Matthew, a nurse and the mother of 3 young children. A new patient is brought in. She's constantly scanning how others are holding up. Treating as many as they can. People say, "Sister, please save our loved one." They call us God. That makes us so emotional because we can only do so much.
Even हम भी emotional हो जाते हैं.
With resources so short, they're having to choose who they might save. Decisions they should never have had to make.
बीच-बीच में हमको रोना भी होते. वो feelings हमको वो तो नींद में.
At times we break down. Some nights I wake up crying, but I also feel a sense of satisfaction that I'm doing something to help.
हम आसपास में discuss.
This is a hospital in a big city and out of reach for most Indians. The situation at this point is so difficult that all the people who work here, everyone who's exposing themselves to risk on a daily basis, knows that if they or their families were to get sick, even they would struggle to find the right medical care. In a city overrun, it's hard to leave the trauma behind. The risks follow you home too. Manjusha's children know not to hug her when she's just back from hospital. But they're too young to fully understand what their mother does. Her frontline role at one of the most grim times in India's history. Yogita Limai, BBC News, Delhi.
And Yogita joins us live now from the Indian capital, Delhi. Thank you very much for being with us on the programme this morning. Your report there paints a really clear picture of some of the extreme challenges that hospital staff and patients are facing in India at the moment.
That's right. It's hard to believe that the scenes we're seeing are, taking place in India's capital, which has among the best healthcare facilities in this country. We've been to so many hospitals over the past few weeks. Everywhere we have seen people struggling to get a hospital bed, even oxygen supplies for their loved ones. I've seen people who've brought their families in the back of cars, in the back of auto rickshaws, literally just going from place to place in the city, begging, pleading for any help that comes forward. What we've seen also in crematoriums is, ambulances sort of loaded with dead bodies coming in. And lots of frontline workers say that the real scale, the real death toll is not what is reflected in official numbers. And obviously this is what is happening in the capital, Delhi. In smaller areas, there are fewer medical facilities, fewer supplies. It's hard to imagine what is taking place in those areas.
You talked there about the death toll numbers, which I know have been questioned by various people. I just wondered, is there a feeling in India that this is like the eye of the storm? Are things going to get better, and how long might that take?
Well, it's difficult to say. There are some parts of India, very few of them at this point, that are the western state of Maharashtra, for example, which Mumbai is the capital, where the figures are...
I'm afraid we had a few technical difficulties there speaking to Yogita, but you got from her piece there just the scale of the problem in India, the sheer numbers, and the fact that the health system is really struggling to cope with that.
We're focusing on that throughout the programme today, and in fact the BBC, across the BBC, and that's the focus as well. So we'll have more on it a little bit later. A single dose of COVID vaccine can cut transmission of the virus by up to half, according to a new study by Public Health England.
It found that people given either the AstraZeneca or Pfizer jabs were less likely to pass infection on to others living in their homes. John McManus has more.
The public health message has been clear for some time. Receiving a vaccine is the best way to avoid becoming ill with COVID-19. This new research, though, has found that vaccination has a second benefit. A single dose of some vaccines can cut transmission of the virus by up to half amongst people who become infected after receiving a jab. The findings from Public Health England show that those who caught COVID-19 3 weeks after being given either the AstraZeneca or Pfizer jab were between 38 and 49% less likely to pass the virus on to those they lived with. Both vaccines require 2 jabs to be fully effective, but it now appears just 1 injection still helps to halt the spread of COVID to others. And most of those tested were under 60 years of age. The findings haven't been peer-reviewed yet, but they've been dubbed terrific news by the Health Secretary Matt Hancock, who said, "We already know vaccines save lives, and this study is the most comprehensive real-world data showing they also cut transmission of this deadly virus. I urge everybody to get their vaccines as soon as they are eligible, and make sure you get your second dose for the strongest possible protection." Meanwhile, a separate study into the side effects of vaccines has shown that 1 in 4 people experience short-lived symptoms, with headaches, tenderness and tiredness being the most common type. Effects usually peaked within 24 hours of receiving a dose, while women and those under 55 were more likely to experience them. And there were some differences between the vaccines.
Our data show that you're more likely to get a local painful bruised arm with the Pfizer one than you are with the AstraZeneca, but slightly less likely to have these mild side effects. And this really just tells us that those severe side effects are incredibly rare.
In general, vaccine confidence is growing in the UK, with a big rise in the number of people who say they want to have the jab as soon as possible. John McManus, BBC News.
Self-driving cars could be allowed on UK roads by the end of the year. The Department for Transport says automated lane keeping systems will be the first type of hands-free driving to be legalised. The technology controls the position and speed of a car in a single lane, but only up to speeds of 37 miles an hour. And drivers will need to be ready to take control of the vehicle if needed.
Arlene Foster's future as leader of the Democratic Unionist Party is under threat. It's understood a number of her colleagues have signed a letter of no confidence in her. She's led the DUP and been Northern Ireland's First Minister for more than 5 years. The DUP says it won't comment on internal party processes.
More and more UK towns and villages are being left without a bank branch or free-to-use cash machine because of closures.
And now some are fighting back and starting up their own community banking hubs. Our personal finance correspondent Kevin Peachy has seen one of them.
It's market day in Rochford, but since the last bank left town more than 3 years ago, locals and traders have had to travel miles to withdraw and deposit cash. Until now. This former carpet shop is 5 banks in one, with a regular counter and mainstream bank staff visiting once a week for trickier transactions.
We've had one lady that came in and said, thank you, you've changed my life. And that's not an understatement when they said we've got vulnerable members of the community that have struggled with travelling far, so to have this on their doorstep has been a lifeline for them, really.
Rochford is gone so quiet. And this is a really good thing for the community, for the older people. Even, I mean, I do internet banking, but it's handy to have someone that you can go to.
So I work at a local salon just around the corner and I get loads of tips. So normally I wait till the end of the month and I just go into town, like Southend, and pay it all in. But obviously I can just do it as and when now.
It's a godsend. Banking round there, we'll just nip round there on a Wednesday and bank what we need to bank. It's great.
Something else is being tried out here in Rochford. You might buy a card or something similar from one of the local shops, but choose not to get your change in coins, but on a card or an app, money which you can then save up to spend locally. If it brings in trade, then everyone's happy.
We're here to provide for the customers. If they want to give us cash, cards, we're happy either way.
As long as they give you something.
Yeah, as long as we're getting our money, we're happy.
In Rochford, they're laughing all the way to the new community bank. Kevin Peachy, BBC News.
See the headlines as they happen and watch BBC News live in the app and get the full story with bbc.co.uk/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.